Endelea kutazama Citizen Town Hall kutoka jumba la kibiashara la Greenhouse Mall hapa jijini Nairobi, ambapo leo tunazidi tu kuzungumzia swala la kuwepo ama kutokuwepo kwa baba katika familia. Na Miriam Rucho anasema there is no difference between a house with a father and the one that doesn't have. Fathers have failed in their responsibilities of bringing up children. They are always busy, and when you try to analyze their business, you really can't get their products. Nataka tu kumpatia nafasi Kweyu Isaac aweze kutueleza kauli yake kuhusiana na mada yetu ya leo.
Kwa majina naitwa Kweyu Isaac, alias Comrade Isaka. Na mwanzo kabisa ningependa kusema kwamba kuna pia mama zetu wengine ambao wameamua kwamba hawatuambii baba zetu. Sio kwamba baba zetu wapo, lakini labda huenda labda walibakwa ndo sisi tukazaliwa, ama kuna mambo kama yale. Pili, ningependa kuzungumza this another type of fathers ambao they only appear the day they become fathers, but they disappear the day they realize or they receive news that they are fathers. These guys who maybe confuse young women and then make them pregnant, then they run away. So my question is, where do we report this type of fathers? Because we know them by face, we know them by names, and we know them even by the ID numbers. Where do we report them?
Mashirima, that is a very good question. I want to see what Ian Bogo will think about that. You have previously seen him playing very tough roles on TV. Where do you report such fathers? But it sounds like a joke, but it's a serious question that many young people out there might be wondering about.
It is a serious question. And I would advise you to go find a lawyer and sue him. Sue him. If need be, there'll be a paternal test, and you will get your dues, because you are entitled as his child to have support from him.
But will that bring the love and reconciliation that the young person might ultimately be looking for?
No, if you're looking for that from that man, forget it. Look for a father figure who will give you that love. But don't go to that, your actual father, and expect him to love you. He dumped you. He's not going to come back to you now.
Okay. Very strong statement there from me. And when Jiko next to you, a question was asked about women who do not want to reveal the men that they were with when they gave birth to that young man, that young woman. What should be done, regarding that situation where the mother just says, "I'm not going to tell you who your father is"? How do you navigate the situation?
Well, when someone makes that kind of a decision, obviously I hope they've thought it through, but I also think to some extent it's also a selfish thing, because for lack of a better word, it takes two to tangle. So we can't only look at the place where we want assistance, but we don't want to let them know who their fathers are. I think that as much as you may having differences is okay. But again, going back to values, if we've taught our children how to cope, it doesn't matter the situation. Because you may keep the father hidden, but when they're 16, they'll ask you, who was my dad? Are
there differences that are beyond a particular limit, where a woman or a man is justified in not revealing the other partner, in your opinion?
Wow, that's a hard one.
Rape?
Yes. When it's without consent.
Yes.
Rape situation, even it doesn't matter whether it's someone known or unknown. Maybe that's it. But also, why I think we shouldn't keep it under wraps. Think about it. There's some children who are with one single parent homes because they were adopted. So again, that's not a scenario where you'll be discussing fatherhood, but you will tell the child when the time is appropriate, this is the situation. I think everybody deserves to know. If they ask it, they deserve to know. I think it's the little secrets that then build up into other bigger things when we keep it under wraps.
Okay, all right. Mashirima, I believe we have another question that you can get as Simon waits. Simon, go ahead.
Add something very small there.
Yes.
Because I've talked with many mothers. Why should I want to do it, but I don't know how to do it? There are some who don't know, I want to reveal this, but when is the appropriate time? How should I say it? And with guidance and counseling, I've seen many of them being able to have a good conversation with their sons. So some of them are willing, it's just they don't know how to.
In 30 seconds, how do they do it? For those who are not able to reach you.
I think every case is different, so it's hard to give one size fits all. That's very hard because it depends on what are the circumstances, what is the age of the children, and when they begin inquiring, and what to tell them. And sometimes I ask them, I tell them, maybe you're not the right person to tell them. Bring the child to me, depending on the circumstances, and let me explain to them what happened. So it depends really on every case. But if you're able to seek help and counseling and guidance, I think there'll always be a way to tell the truth and hold back whatever information that would not be useful for the child.
Yes, I agree with you. And also, someone talked about creating civic awareness. This is the same thing. If we don't talk about, I feel that we're so confined to the church sort of guides the way, and not everybody is in that space. So if we make it open and not a place where we're saying it's only from a religious perspective, the church is good, the psychologist is good, anyone can. But I think we also have to make those different avenues known so that people have a choice.
Okay.
Yes.
So people have a choice. Even as we get the next question, our conversation here in many ways touches around issues around urban areas. What is happening out there in the villages? What fatherhood issues are young people facing out there? Simon, you had the experience of going to one or two locations outside of Nairobi. In a nutshell, what's happening out there?
I think what we realized in Murang'a, where we are talking with some fathers, and also in Maralal with Honorable Naisula, what we have realized in those places, a lot of fathers have clear questions of, I want to connect with my son or my daughter, but I don't know how to, because a lot of them were brought up by very distant fathers who are authoritarian. So now they are fathering and they really don't know how to connect. So it's been interesting to be asked very basic questions. How do I talk to my child about drugs and about sex education and things like that? And hence for me, my passion to see fathers come together and have a discussion on how to relate well to our children and be intentional out there.
Let's get some more questions in. Go ahead, Masimo.
Kuna jambo ambalo lilikuwa limetajwa awali kuhusiana na wale wazazi ambao wanakuja baadaye wanataka huwa na uhusiano na watoto wao. Na Mudhoni Gwantai anasema, my sister and I would go to the market and see my dad, but he would hide. Now that we are older, he wants to reconnect with us. We need better fathers. That kind of situation, what do you do?
Doctor, let's hear from Dr. Carol. What do you do in a situation like that? Is there a scientific way?
in a non-scientific.
Is there a scientific way from your experience?
There is a scientific way. I think what Marilyn alluded to earlier and said, give them space to come back if they want to come back at that time. But I think that there's going to be a lot of reconciliation needed and a lot of just helping each person be able to open up, speak out their truths, deal with the unforgiveness they might be having, because eventually it works better when people are relating and have let go of the issues that are tying them. So if later on someone wants to come back, I think that space should be allowed, but also not just force them back in, but really just make sure that there is processes that they go through so that and it's going to be a long process.
How long? Give us is there any way to measure?
It really depends on how hard you work on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can't give you
specific
2 months or 3 months, but I think the more open you are to allow the healing process to happen, then the faster you get.
The faster it will happen.
You get to that end.
Okay, Mushroom.
Na wahiga hapo kwa hilo jambo.
And also forgiveness is what Ian is adding to the same.
Hapo kwa hilo jambo ambalo ametaja Sara Ogola hapa anasema kuwa amepitia mambo kama hayo, na labda naweza kutuambia wewe Sara, ili kuchukua muda gani kupata hiyo healing ambayo daktari anasema?
Thank you, Mashirima. I've just finished my 20 years. I'm in my 30s, and I would say when I was 25 is when I was very deliberate to just go in and deal with the bitterness and unforgiveness that I had. But I think I would encourage anyone who has bitterness or pain to go through the process, because it does hinder you in how you relate with people generally. But then if you're pursuing marriage in the future, it does affect the kind of relationships that you pursue. I think even career-wise, I saw myself as a very withdrawn young girl, and with the process of healing and embracing forgiveness, I have seen how it has benefited me even in my career.
What happens, and it's an interesting point you've raised, what happens if the person who you want to forgive or you want to ask forgiveness from is no longer there, for example? How do you then resolve all that? And tying it to your future, isn't that dangerous? Because it means if you cannot get a certain breakthrough with that person, then does that mean your future is doomed?
Maybe I can say my father is still very much alive, and I can say that at the point where I was starting my healing process, I wasn't necessarily looking for him to sit down with me and tell me I'm sorry. And so I chose to go through the process for myself. Whether he was going to tell me sorry or not, I chose to deal with the pain that I had harbored for so long. And thank God that he's alive. I actually got a chance to speak with him today before I came here, and we're actually at the point where we can have a conversation, and it has been a process, but I would by all means encourage anyone to go through it, because it benefits you more than it benefits anyone else, not even your father. It benefits you more.
Okay. All right, Wale, briefly, go ahead.
I think it's so important what she said, because we have a misconception, and I think this also applies to us even as a nation or as nations. We have a misconception that forgiveness is for the person we are forgiving. That is a misconception. Forgiveness is for the person that is forgiven. Just today, I was talking with someone who said, my stepmother she chopped off my finger. Today, my stepmother chopped off my finger and did all sorts of things. She said, how do you begin to forgive that? And so another thing I also like to tell people is that I cannot force forgiveness. I cannot force you to forgive the person, and that's where mentors come in. The more you talk about it, the more we create an environment where you can talk about it, then you actually begin to see that, hey, this forgiveness thing is for me, not for that person.
Okay. And you wanted to add something briefly?
Yes, I think we now, still on the topic of forgiveness, we need to really see it as a process, because what we have been told by society is forgive and forget, it's thrown around, just forgive and move on.
Accept and move on.
Yeah, exactly, accept and move on. When you say accept, it means that's the last stage of a whole process where there's denial, there's anger, there's blaming, there's all that. So we are not told, deny, be angry, speak it out, acknowledge it. This is painful, let's say it for what it is. So that by the time you have gotten to acceptance, you have gone through the crying stage, the angry stage, the hatred stage, okay? Because we are not socialized to speak out strong negative emotions. Forgiveness has been packaged into this very nice thing that, it's just an end product, but what is the process that gets you there? And when you asked about what if that someone is dead, what do you do about that? I think what you need to understand is, like he said, it's really about you. And so if something has been acknowledged, you have started the process of healing. It doesn't have to be with the person who wronged you. You may never even get an opportunity to sit with that person.
What matters is you yourself.
Yeah, you may never get that.
What happens in you?
Yeah, it's really what happens to you. You can get someone to vent to and just take it out, because what needs is the pain to come out. Okay. If that pain is suppressed, it's going to express itself in other ways.
Okay.
Even when we say we have forgiven, we need to know this. Even when we say we have forgiven, 6 months later, something may happen that just triggers it. Like I had a case where this couple, bad fight, and lady said, okay, I've forgiven. But anytime she smells the cologne he used to use, the anger comes back. and she said she has forgiven. So we need to also help to manage such things, because even when we say we have, somewhere there,
deep in there,
when you know you have really forgiven, is when those anchors, those things that could have reminded you of him, when they come and they have no effect on you anymore. So forgiveness is not an event, it's a process.
It's a process. Okay. Mashrima.
Naam, kuna jumbe nyingi ambazo zinaingia hapa. Kuna wale ambao wanasema kuwa kuna tofauti kati ya yule ambaye anapeana mimba na yule ambaye analea mtoto. Wacha nimpatie Odhiambo nafasi aweze kutuambia tofauti iko wapi.
I'm John Odhiambo from the Cooperative University of Kenya, Karen. My first comment is, we should know how to differentiate between a father and a worthy dad. A worthy dad is a person who can provide a moral support, financial support, and emotional support. And a father is just a person who can pregnant and run away. Everybody have the ability to do so. But kuna some of us, we are raised in the church way. We have our worthy dad in the church. They can provide a financial support, emotional support, and also moral support from the church. So we should not dwell in this issue of father, what. Kuna some of us, we know church members, church fathers as our dads. So we should not lose focus to start discussing the person who impregnates your mom as your dad. We have different dads who can do their role well. Kuna fathers who are there, but they are physically present. They are just physically present, but again physically absent. They can't provide moral support, financial support, and emotional support at the same time. Thank you.
Okay, and even as he's made that contribution, there's a question here from Fred Obachi Machoka. Some know him as the blackest man in Black Africa. He's saying, hello Wahiga, kindly ask the panelists, is there a way that children raised by single mothers can be assisted in getting assistance on social issues which possibly only men can handle? Yeah. Simon, I don't know if that's... are there issues that only men can handle? I don't know, Simon or Marlene, if any of you want to take that and respond to what he also said?
Okay. Maybe what I would say is my own story. I had a great mother, and she's still alive. So she assisted me in a lot of things. But there's a way I couldn't identify with her as a boy because I needed a male figure, what we were talking earlier about other men around you. And I missed that. I hungered for that. And so my music teacher coming in and just talking to me in certain ways and hearing his voice and affirming what my mom affirmed, that did something that my mother could not do. It's not about who is better, it's about what roles we play. I need the voice of a mother, I need the voice of a father. And both of them pull out something in me and help me develop in a certain way. I think what I would say is, because we have worked with a lot of young people from such families, is there needs to be men available to do mentoring. I think that's what we are saying. My music teacher did that for me, and I celebrate him wherever he is. And others who just model what it means to be a man.
How easy is it to get those men? When you make a call, men, come and mentor these young, how many men show up?
Well, it's interesting. I have a colleague, a friend of mine who mentors girls, and she is oversubscribed in terms of women wanting to mentor girls. I'm trying to get mentors, and I have like 20% of the mentors that we need
20%.
in the school. So a lot of men feel like they're not qualified to connect with boys. I don't know where that came from, but we need a lot of men just feeling, I want to be available to speak into the lives of boys because they're asking for it.
They're asking for it. And let me get something from Marilyn here. He's raised an interesting point. He's saying stop focusing on the physical man, the physical quote-unquote father. Anyone who steps up can play that role, and he thinks that's what we should be discussing. What are your thoughts?
That's important. I think that's important. But I also think that we're doing this and we're seeing people as these perfect sort of human beings. Like there's this moment then that you are the good father or a good mother. And parenting is hard, and it's so many mistakes, and it is a human being trying to get through life and taking care of other human beings, you know. And I think we need to give each other more grace. We need to understand that there are mistakes that will be made, and that somebody could start off being just a biological donor and become a father, right? And become a good mother. Because, you know, even though we're having this conversation, just because mothers are present, a lot of the reason that mothers are present is biological, and social. So we're socially constructed to stay. It's not that women are better, because I'm a total feminist in that regard. Men and women, it is that women are socially constructed to stay. The circumstances mean that it is harder for us to leave even if we wanted to leave. And if we are honest about that, what does that do? Again, it takes away some of the shame from men, because it says it's not that you are bad per se, it's that actually society is structured it in such a way that it's easier for you to leave, right? So the person who stays isn't necessarily better. They're just, and sometimes they probably resent being the one who's there, So I do think that that's important. But the other thing that I wanted to just say is that it's important that we socialize children, that they are normal. Whether you come from a two-parent family, a single parent, polygamous, your mom was widowed, dad was widowed, you are an adopted child of gay parents, they are normal human beings. They deserve to be on this planet. They deserve to be loved. And if we can do that and affirm children more, then the circumstances in which they grew up, which they had no control over, can start to have less of an impact, and they can start.
Who they will eventually become.
Well, they can stop casting these long shadows where you assume that my life is predestined in particular ways. Because I do think it's important to have the male connections and to look for those. But when we're affirming that you're normal, then when you're looking for those connections, you're not looking from a place of lack, you're looking for a place of connection. You're looking to connect to somebody, not because you think you're deficient, right? You're just saying, you know what, I'd like to do this. And I think that is so much more powerful than the messages we are sending, which are really that you lack something, right? And I think that's a dangerous message, because it sows seeds of self-doubt that are not actually related to your capacity as a human being.
So in a sense, you can be complete, despite your family setup. If you start,
I think you're a complete human being because you're a human being.
Because you're a human being.
Yeah.
That's a good place to take a break. And as we take that break, let me read some of your feedback. Really getting a lot of traction on social media. Namesake E Echo says that it's all in the mind. I have raised my kids, 2 boys now, one an engineer, the other doing journalism, well behaved and admired by many. Is it better to have a drunkard, abusive father? ? I'm a proud mom and they are proud sons. It's all in the mind. Anne Gaki Mugure says, I was raised without a dad. It really affected me socially since it has become difficult even to trust men. I don't know how a man should be handled. We'll be talking about that and so much more when the program continues. We're live from Greenhouse Mall. We're talking about missing fathers, absentee fathers, the changing face of families in Kenya. And this is on the Monday Report. #Monday Report. 2242 is our SMS line. Keep talking to us. We'll be right back after this short break.